Hello everyone and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Ali.
I'm Sara.
And boy, have we got an episode for you. We say this every week, but it's just getting better and better.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't say that every week.
Yes, I can, because
we've had this conversation before.
We're just getting better and better.
Well, I'll kick it off by saying real quick, quick housekeeping, if you will. We are going to be back, of course, for an episode next week, and then we're going to take a quick 2-week break before we go into full-blown World Cup mode. So the last week of June and the first week of July, we will not be dropping an episode. Quick break for us, and then we are back the week of Monday, July 10th for our regular episodes, and do not fret because our World Cup episodes will kick off the week of the 17th. And that is the week that the World Cup starts, of course, and we'll have full coverage for you throughout the entire tournament, 2 episodes per week. It's going to be great.
But we first have to talk about the elephant that is in the room, which is...
Speaking of the World Cup.
Speaking of the World Cup, which is the advert dropped by the USA has divided opinion.
Yeah, it really does.
In the women's soccer world.
You know what I loved?
Go on.
I was really expecting more people on our page, because I put a tweet out on our Twitter page saying, hey, Sara really doesn't like this ad, but wondering what the consensus is for women's national team fans, U.S. women's national team fans. And I think every single comment said that they liked it. And it made me like it more just because all of the comments were like, well, we have won 2 in a row. Well, they're just jealous. Well, like it or hate it, this is brilliant marketing. I mean, I can't argue with any of those. It's a very come at us. It obviously makes the target on our back way bigger. If it could get... Can it get any bigger? I don't really think so. So maybe why not just throw this at the wall too, right?
The thing is, I don't hate it. I thought I was going to hate it because I do not normally don't think. I don't hate it. The problem I have is A, it begs a bigger target on your back. B, the timing of it, because if this had been in front of the World Cup last time round in 2019, I would have been like, absolutely, you have got the mouth to back that up, you go for it. However, as someone pointed out, the teams that you have called out, or the countries you have called out in this advert, all have beat you very recently. USA are not in the top form that they are in, that they have been previously. You are not the world beaters right now that you have been. You're going through some teething problems. So to have the ego to throw this out has suddenly been like, guys, this is not 2019.
I can't remember 2019 and where everybody's mentality was. I do remember that England had won She Believes. So that possibly could have been thrown in the face if this ad had dropped in 2019. Everybody knows if there's a team I will ever be ride or die for, it is the U.S. women's national team. They have my heart for so many reasons, and I could do a whole episode on why they have my heart, and it's not just soccer, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I've lost my train of thought because I just started thinking about how much I love the U.S. women's national team. Oh my God. I have so many thoughts on this, and everybody can go listen to the World Cup preview because we talk all about the U.S. and what they might be able to do in this World Cup. To stay on the ad for a second, I'm just going to talk you through my thought process in relationship to this ad. And I've only watched it once, to be fair. I wish I'd rewatched it.
I did like how you were like, it's so Fox News.
That's kind of how I felt. So I watched it for the first time, and I'm expecting to get chills and get so excited from this ad. And instead I'm sitting there being like, oh, this is
Did you get secondhand embarrassment?
I got secondhand embarrassment. I got a weird nationalism type feel from it, like a Fox propaganda, USA is the best country in the world kind of vibe from it. And that doesn't have to be included in our love for the U.S. women's national team. In fact, I'd prefer that it isn't. And I think that's why it really rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, geez, come on, Fox, just at least keep yourself out of this one. I know that Fox Sports is airing the World Cup, but just let it be about soccer. And it didn't feel like it was at its core. But I gotta say, everybody who's saying this is brilliant marketing, you're not wrong. It's brilliant marketing. This is all the Twitterverse was talking about for 24 hours in terms of the WOSO Twitterverse. And second of all, look, yeah, you're talking about how we've talked at length exhaustively about where the US is at coming into this World Cup. And also, where they're coming into this World Cup at is that they won in 2015 and they won in 2019. And so why not be like, hey, you want it? Come and get it. Because we've got 2 in a row now. All right, but we're not here to talk about the World Cup.
No, let's talking about dividing and things we're not liking. You've got a little...
Yes, before we get into the NWSL, I just want to do a very quick PSA. Just noticed recently that it feels like Twitter comments as a whole are getting mean and negative in the like women's soccer space. And Allie, we've talked a lot about how we kind of saw this coming as the women's soccer fan base grows and more people come into it. And we've noticed it on our page specifically. And I just want to say for our page, it's a positive and safe space. And if you want to comment, keep it positive or you're going to get muted or blocked. And it's that simple and it's not that hard. If you have something to say, there's always a nice way to say it. We're not trying to limit what you say. We're just trying to say, if you have something to say, there's a nice way to say it.
So we are doing our game of the week, which is a NWSL game. Now, I proposed this game mainly because my social media was ablaze for not necessarily gameplay reasons over this game. We are, of course, going to talk about Houston Dash versus Gotham.
And mainly Houston, honestly. We don't have a lot to say about Gotham.
No, it's all about the Dash, really. So this game ended in a tie of 1-1. But it was an explosive game. Like, it was everything.
Yeah, I know we really want to get into, what a lot of Houston fans are upset about, which is the refereeing. But to touch on the game briefly, this game took a while for both teams to settle in. It was kind of a bore in the first half. Neither team really was able to maintain possession. It was kind of ugly football. Even the Gotham players in the postgame kind of alluded to that. But once these teams settled in for the second half, it got physical. It got exciting. We expected a shootout from this game, and it was actually really nice to see what we ended up getting, which was a goalkeeper battle in Jane Campbell for Houston and Abby Smith for Gotham. Jane Campbell's having one of the best seasons she's ever had in the NWSL, and Abby Smith, fresh to Gotham, has won this starting role. She's been so big for Gotham this year, and both keepers made incredible saves. Both of these teams are leaders in the league for least goals allowed. So I guess it really seems fitting that it became the goalkeeper battle that it became.
I was going to say, I love Abby Smith, but I want to give a shout out to Jane Campbell because Jane Campbell has been, I think we've actually seen across the league a real step up for goalkeepers this season. Like, they were good before, and I feel like there are so many now that I'm like, I could name that are just having...
I just feel like it's always been building, and the NWSL has always been such a great ground for young, incredible goalkeepers, and we're just seeing it continue year over year to build and grow.
But Jane Campbell has been a stalwart at Houston Dash. She's just bypassed the record of longest player serving at a club. Has been at Houston for like 10 years now, and is just, it's going to be hard. Like, if she ever leaves, it's like, it's so ingrained. Jane Campbell, Houston, Jane Campbell.
Where's she going to wear her cowboy hat if she leaves?
Exactly. So the reason I picked it up is because I have a lot of Houston friends that really love this team. And they were so upset with the officiating in this game. And I can kind of understand it because some of it was a bit dicey.
Yeah.
But they were really upset, mainly, I think, by the 2 goals that were disallowed.
Yeah. I think understandably so. Having 2 goals disallowed in a game, that's a tough pill to swallow for any fan. Yeah. Whether they were justified or not, that's a tough pill to swallow. I think it's going to get interesting as we get into each one. Because for me, one of them was very, very justified. And one of them should have been a goal.
So let's talk about them separately. So the first was a breakaway by Ordonez. Abby Smith came out of the goal for Gotham as the last defender and was out of the box and made a feet-first slide tackle. Now, we've seen this recently in the WSL with Ellie Roebuck in the Manchester derby, which was an instant dismissal for Roebuck in a very similar fashion. Took out the player, didn't get the ball, and then because technically Ordonez was offside, everything was nullified.
Yeah.
Gone.
This was only a little bit confusing, and the commentators were confused by it too, because this was a case of, can VAR be implemented in this moment or not? And it turns out not, which is disappointing, because when you see the replay, Ordonez, in my opinion, was onside by a hair, but she was onside.
I was going to say, that's what you're checking with VAR. It's not the red card situation, because the red card is instant if she's onside.
Yeah.
Which I think is a stupid rule,
people
anyway.
started to kind of debate the Abby Smith, would this have been a card? There was a former U.S. Women's National Team goalkeeper on commentary who was like, no, it's not a card. And I was like, that should have absolutely been a red card. Like,
that was
if
a red
this
card.
if this is not called offside, that should absolutely be a red card. Last defender, goal scoring opportunity. She got the player. End of story.
And it was studs up. Like, it's feet first, studs up. Like,
yeah,
that's a dangerous tackle.
It's disappointing because, yeah, I thought Ordonez was onside. But so I guess this is really, I guess the only thing up for debate is if she was on or offside. But Houston fans, and certainly Houston, have a right to be disappointed by that. At that point in the game, that would have been the go-ahead goal.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you can definitely see why they're upset about that. It does annoy me that being offside suddenly takes away all sorts of, because that was a dangerous tackle. She should have been penalised for it.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't mind that whatsoever. I think that this is a case of, well, I'm just going to straight up say I'm confused about the implementation and not lack of implementation of VAR in this situation. If it went to VAR, we never saw that in the stream, at least on Paramount Plus. It was never said that it went to VAR. There was never a moment left for the ref to do a VAR check. However, based on the VAR rules, the lines referees held their flag down until the referee blew her whistle after the Abby Smith tackle. So there's a lot of what just happened and where does VAR fit in around this that I don't know the intricacies of. And nobody has come out, the referees haven't come out and said if VAR was used. It doesn't seem like it was. So it's very kind of behind closed doors. It feels like we don't have all of the information. All I know is that watching that, Ordonez was onside. And if you're going to have VAR, this is the moment that you use VAR.
Absolutely. And then the second disallowed goal, which is the one I think we both agree 100% should never have been a goal.
Yeah. This one was just salt in the wound for the Houston Dash fans.
Yeah.
They would have accepted this one if it hadn't been for the Abby Smith non-red card call earlier in the game.
So it was second goal due to the VAR check. Houston's Alozie put away a goal. They think that's it, going up ahead. And then it gets called back because the ball went out of bounds earlier in the play. You watch it back. It's not even a touch over. That is so far over, it's basically in the stands.
First of all, Alozie, I want to come on to her. So put a pin in that because she's been absolutely amazing. Like you said, this was the right call. Ball went out of bounds. Tough for Houston fans. This really was just annoying because why didn't you stop the play earlier? Just call it when it goes out of bounds. This would have been a huge moment for Houston. It was tied 1-1 at this point. This was the 60th minute, and this would have been the game-winning goal. And obviously it got disallowed. Like we were just saying, right call, salt in the wounds for Houston fans. And these weren't the only two refereeing calls that Houston or frankly anybody was upset about. I think it's worth noting that Houston's head coach Sam Lady slammed the referees in the post-game press conference, saying, I'm just going to quote him. He said, quote, "It might well be the worst refereeing performance I have ever seen in the league." Listen, that's a really big statement to make considering the reffing in the NWSL, but it's also big if a head coach comes into the postgame and says that. That's just got to be noted there across the board. And he noted that the referees allowed Gotham players around the screen when the ref was checking VAR. He said that they took way too long to make the calls, and altogether there were just a lot of inconsistencies across the board.
The thing is, right, agree with him around allowing the Gotham players around the screen, because that's like players surrounding a physical ref. Like, I hate it. Like, back yourselves away, let them make their decision. Taking too long, that is a thing of VAR, my friend.
I agree.
That is like yes, it's a critique of VAR, but I don't think it's of this specific game. Like, the amount of times I was watching, I guess it was a men's game, but I was watching a West Ham game over the weekend, and they took like 3 minutes to make a call or whether something was a foul or not. And that's just a VAR thing. So I wouldn't blame this particular reffing team for that. I just think it's something that as VAR gets more used and practiced, they'll be quicker in making their decisions.
I agree. Altogether, though, I mean, I think part of the reason Houston is so upset is because they played so well and they felt like they deserved these 3 points. And frankly, the way the game was played, I would certainly agree with that. They were the better side. They had the opportunities to take the 3 points. At the end of the game, it was them really pushing in Gotham, just trying to hold on to that 1 point, one of those games. But you know what? Sometimes that's just how it falls. Disappointing for Houston. But altogether, let's just spend a moment on Houston, because since the beginning of the season, this team has really gelled and they've become quite the force to be reckoned with in the NWSL.
Yeah, can I just shout out Sanchez? Sanchez, for me, she's been having a blinder of a season already, but in this game, it was just a masterclass. I was just blown away.
I'll always call out Maria Sanchez when we talk about Houston. I think she's one of the NWSL players that slides under the radar. Who knows why? Possibly because she's on a team like Houston that has so many strong attacking players. If you look at the statistics for the Houston Dash, over the past few games, they've barely had one person to put away 2 goals. And there's so many different goal scorers on this team, and that's part of what makes them just so dangerous.
It's a wonderful problem to have. It's a wonderful problem to have about who's going to be your goal scorer.
A wonderful problem to have. And speaking of goal scorers, I mean, let's just talk about this front 3. It's unfortunate for Ebony Salmon, obviously, that these front 3 have really been able to gel together so quickly and so wonderfully. But the front 3 of Alozi, Ordonez, and then Anderson's kind of sitting in that number 10 position. That triangle up top.
I forgot Anderson was a Dash player. Anderson, again, just huge this season.
Anderson, so young, really coming into her own right now with the Dash. And yeah, like I was just saying, those 3 in that triangle with then the support of Sanchez and Didasco on the wings, it's a formidable attack, and any of those 5 players can put away a goal, and I just absolutely love what they've been building there. I just want to call out one more Houston player in Sophie Hurst. This is her first season in the NWSL. She was drafted. She played at Harvard, and she is newly finding herself in the starting lineup for Houston, and she has been such a wonderful addition to that midfield. She's the one who got kicked to the face, and that looked like a broken nose, so we'll wait and see what happens on that, because that looked like a big ouch. But just to shout out, she's one to keep your eye on when it comes to the Houston Dash. And frankly, if you have a front line that's too good to have Ebony Salmon starting, you're doing something right.
And very quickly, on Gotham, before we move on, Kelly O'Hara, you are one lucky so-and-so on that one.
Isn't she always? I think she gets away with a lot because of her smile.
I was going to say, she's got that like cheeky, chappy sort of thing going for her. So I do think she gets away with a hell of a lot because of her personality. You're lucky that was a yellow. I mean, to be fair, I was saying before, I think it was also really lucky because she's glass ankles. Like, she's lucky she didn't damage herself in that tackle. Never mind.
Yeah, we were talking about this.
High.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we recorded, and we were just like, yeah, and the intent for Kelly was clearly not malicious. It was a dirty tackle. It was late, but she was genuinely trying to get that ball.
Hey, she's older now. She's slightly off pace.
All right. We didn't have time because we really wanted to dive into Houston to cover a couple of the other teams that we wanted to touch on. So just to say, Orlando, in a shocking turn of events, ended up taking down Portland Thorns 3-1 this past weekend. Orlando, they are now in 8th place right behind Houston with that win that they just took off of Portland. And we've talked about Orlando a little bit since the beginning of the season about how young this team was and how the organization has really turned over a new leaf. And that this is going to be a fun team to watch and a team that, as it progresses through the years, will be able to challenge for the top. We're not going to break them down here, but stay tuned for next week because we're going to do a deep dive into Orlando.
It suddenly makes sense why Raffaele has gone to them.
It certainly does.
The final game that we want to shout out is the North Carolina Courage beating Chicago 5-0, which we don't really see this in the NWSL. It's very, very rare you get these like absolute hammerings, which you do get a bit more in the WSL. Unfortunately, Chicago, we talked about it earlier in the season, your problems are just getting worse and worse as things go on, and I'm not sure why, but that's something to keep an eye on and keep looking at. But
yeah, we certainly talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the season when Mal Swanson went down, but it's worth diving a little deeper into in future episodes, and we will do so. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. Starting off with Mexico and La Liga MX. America are your Clausura champions. They took the game 2-1 against Pachuca. They actually took both legs, first and second, 2-1 against Pachuca, meaning that they have won the championship 4-2 on aggregate.
To Ireland, and Piedmont United extend their lead in the Irish Premier Division with a 1-0 win over Shamrock Rovers. Trying to close the gap, however, is Heather O'Reilly's old team, Shelbourne United, who had a very convincing win this weekend, scoring 5 against Wexford.
Who isn't Heather O'Reilly's old team?
I know, she refuses to retire.
Over to Italy. Roma took the Italian title after a phenomenal season for the side, 13 points clear of their closest rivals, getting to the knockout stages of the Champions League, and we look forward to seeing what they can do next year in both the Italian League and the Champions League.
And finally, 2 big teams have announced their send-off games. England will take on Portugal on the 1st of July at Milton Keynes, and the USA are going to play Wales on July 9th in San Jose.
And that game in San Jose is going to be at the stadium that the new NWSL team recently announced. They will be Bay FC, and they will be playing in that stadium in San Jose, which is formerly known as just the San Jose Earthquake Stadium. They will be playing in that on that day. Exciting stuff.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
I am here with Amanda Vandervort, president of the USLW League and Super League, which we have been highlighting a lot this year across all of our platforms. I'm really excited to be here talking to you. Thank you for taking the time to be on this podcast.
Thank you for having me and for all the great coverage.
You are very welcome. Thank you for all of the great content that we get to cover, honestly.
Thank the players. It's all the players.
I have to do a shout out because I've been able to cover FA Euros games personally in person, and they've just been so amazing. And also being from the Bay Area, seeing what Oakland Soul has been able to do has been just heartwarming, honestly. I almost bought one of the jerseys and then I realized it was $100. But they're so great. I absolutely love just how much like the presence it feels. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but because you have the statistics, but the feeling is that it's getting a lot more coverage this year than last year. Across the league and across the teams.
Yeah, I would say exactly that, the league and the teams. I think last year we were at 44 teams, in the W League, and that was mostly east of the Mississippi, and with our expansion to 65 teams this year, with the inclusion of like the Pacific Northwest and NorCal divisions, certainly the coast to coast coverage has been a lot more intense. And then, you add in clubs like Oakland, you see Minnesota, Aurora, continuing to really push the envelope in their market. But then, in your region, I mean, in New York, New Jersey, we've got great teams. And I mean, all across, it's really, I think the effort locally has been really, really outstanding. And I've been really proud of our ownership groups and our leadership within the clubs of driving that conversation, because visibility is important.
I could not agree more. That's partly why this podcast even started. So I'm going to rewind for our listeners, not just outside of the US. We obviously have a ton of listeners in the UK and beyond, but even I'm sure listeners in the US might be blind to the W League and the Super League and really what it is. So for those who might not have heard of it or heard the name but don't really know, can you share, what is the W League and the Super League, and why are these leagues so important to the continued development of the pipeline here for women's soccer in the US?
Yeah, let me start big picture. The USL, which is the umbrella under which we operate, is United Soccer Leagues here in the US, and it's historically been men's soccer, youth to pro. We've got an academy, a pre-professional league called League Two, and then the USL Championship. So, and League One, so men's professional soccer. So, over maybe the last 10 years, that's what the USL has built. So we've got a league office, we've got experienced ownership groups, and we've got a national footprint on the men's side. But we, firmly believe in women's soccer at all levels and believe significantly in that pipeline of talent and being able to produce and create opportunities where you really matching talent with opportunity, wherever it might be in a player's development. So what we've done on the women's side is launched this year, we've launched a girls academy program. Our pilot academy launched this year. We have the W League, which is our pre-professional league. What that means is that every player in the W League is an amateur status. So they can still continue to play at collegiate level and not sacrifice their eligibility. But the W League, we really run it. It's a pre-professional league, but we run it ultimately here in the office very, very professionally. And then the Super League sits on top of that. We're launching that in August 2024. And that's our fully professional league that will be sanctioned Division One. We're excited. So we really look at the entire developmental pathway for players, for coaches, for front office staff, kind of the whole ecosystem of women's soccer. And we're committed to, the long-term growth of the game.
That's amazing. And I guess my personal question here about the W League is when the concept of the W League came to mind, and mind you, for anybody listening, the W League plays over the summer. So as you mentioned, pre-professional, anybody who's playing in the collegiate system here in the US has to maintain an amateur status. They can play in the W League. It seems like a wonderful way to train in between, when you're not at your college. Was that the thought process in starting the W League? Because I've also seen, knowing a lot of people who do play in it, it's also brought a lot of folks who played college, graduated, and then weren't among, the 16 people drafted to the NWSL. It's brought a lot of them back. And there's a lovely mix of those two in the league. What was your thought process in starting it? Was it geared towards one of them, or was it meant to really bring all of that talent together?
Yeah, the latter. I think it's an opportunity for there's so many women in this country and girls too aspiring to play at the pro level. So for us, the W League, it creates that bridge, in those summer months for the collegiate players, but certainly offering an opportunity for those players who've graduated, who want to, continue to compete at a high level with, with standards that befit them as top level players. Was really important to us. Big picture, the W League is more opportunities for more women in more communities across the country, and that's both on and off the field. So for us, it's also a talent identification and development space for people to work in the sport too, because that's something we know there's not enough women working in soccer, whether that's men's or women's soccer. And so to be able to attract them through the W League, offer programming for the women who are players to maybe extend their careers off the field too when they're done playing. So, if they want to work in media or start a podcast, right, Sarah?
Totally. I was about to say, I think I'm a beneficient of the W League, specifically having gotten to start, doing commentary and play-by-play for a W League team. It's providing all of those opportunities. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and I think what we don't sometimes talk about is that here at the league office at the USL, we have 18 different departments, right? It's everything from operations to marketing to PR to the executive team. So there's so many like career paths that we don't really talk about. I don't think enough, so that women know that they can continue to work, in our sport and help drive the future of it. And it can be in our hands.
I love that you kind of pointed to me when you brought it up, because I think when people hear like, oh, it creates opportunities for people off the field, the only thing that they really can think about is like the front office or the league office. But really what it means is like across the board, there's actually this huge support system. We need people to cover the game and so on and so forth, that it's really creating more than just the front office and the league office opportunities. To go to the USL Super League for a second, because you guys made huge news when it was announced that you're applying for the Division 1 status for the Super League for 2024. Were you first and foremost, were you expecting it to make that big of a splash? Because that it really got picked up and took over for a moment.
It's a statement of our intent. And I think that that's important that people recognized that and acknowledged it and are along for the journey with us. So for me, it was really exciting and encouraging that we did have the amount of media and engagement. I mean, it's certainly the Division 1 status. Really, what it does signify is the standards that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. And I think it opened up an entire conversation around what those standards are and why they exist. And I think that was an important kind of outcome of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it was exciting for us, but also I think sets the standard for us as a league too, and what our expectations are in terms of how we present our information and how we talk about ourselves.
So why was it important to create the Super League as Division 1, as that thing that the W League can feed into?
Yeah, well, we hold ourselves, whether it's the academy, whether it's the W League, whether it's the Super League, we hold ourselves to the highest standards possible. And so for us, why would we hold ourselves to anything less than the Division 1 standards? It was the most we felt it made the most sense for our ambitions as a league to be a global leader in the women's game and be invested in the careers and opportunities of both the players and the people involved in the league. And so it made all the sense in the world, and that's the opportunity we want to present for everyone involved in the Super League is Division 1 standard.
So I have to ask, because when this took off, with the news of the Division 1 status took off, I'm sure you saw a bunch of people kind of asking, well, how is this going to work now? Because obviously now there's 2 Division 1 status women's leagues in the US, in the NWSL and the Super League starting in 2024. And some of, I guess, the criticism was that it might rival or like pull away from the NWSL. So I guess kind of 2 questions. What do you say to that? Because I think that that's a very negative way to look at it. And it doesn't mean you have to pick. This is actually can be viewed as very much a positive. So what do you say to those who are kind of viewing it in more of the negative sense and like that?
Yeah, we want to bring professional women's soccer closer to home across all these communities. And for us right now, we see an opportunity gap. There's only 12 this year, 14 next year, professional women's soccer teams. And for us, launching the Super League means we're filling that gap in communities that haven't had access to professional women's soccer before. I was in Phoenix a couple weeks ago after we announced, our initial 8 teams. I went out and I met with Phoenix Rising, the group, and the amount of women in the front office at that club who came up to me and said thank you was honestly overwhelming. The amount of fans who were just so excited to have professional soccer in their hometown. It was, for me, I'm from Arizona, so it was like a very it was a very personal experience for me and almost a full circle like life moment,
Yeah.
but it was
I
so
get that. I'm from the Bay, so like I felt that with Oakland Soul, and I was like,
yeah.
I want them to be in 2025. While I have you on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable, and I feel so compelled by this opportunity to bring, again, bringing professional soccer to communities who haven't had it, and all the not only the women who can play, work, and watch the game, but to the little girls in those cities too.
Totally. I mean, I'm going to add on to that. First, I would just want to list because it's going to start in 2024 with 8 teams in Charlotte, North Carolina, Dallas, Fort Worth, Lexington, Kentucky, Phoenix, Arizona, Spokane, Washington, Tampa, Florida, Tucson, Arizona, and Washington, D.C. Hope I got those correct. If not, the internet did me dirty. But I guess I just also want to add on and say that NWSL is incredible, and it's not an either or, and it actually doesn't have to be involved in this conversation. I'm only pointing to it to say that there's still a very few amount of teams in that league. And as somebody who came up through the collegiate system in the US, it's very clear to me as a player that you either get drafted to one of those few teams or you have to play your professional soccer outside of the country. And to have more professional teams available to collegiate athletes coming out of the system who want to stay in the US, who want to play professionally, to now have that is so huge, and will only help grow and develop the game here in this country.
I mean, I've had a lot of players who are overseas reach out to me about the opportunity to come home. So yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
special. The engagement, the interest, has been overwhelming. I mean, in the most positive way, right? Because, I mean, listen, there's 40,000 women playing college soccer today, right? And they're not all graduating at the same time, but like, that's the pipeline. And
Right.
you said,
Yeah.
earlier, the limited number of people today who have an opportunity to play pro. So, and it's more jobs for players, but then it's also, again, it's just more jobs in soccer.
I appreciate that that's such a equal part of the USL business model. It's actually, yes, it's about the players, but it's also about the business opportunities for people to work in the women's game. And you see that, cut and dry in the mission statement. I do want to ask about the schedule for the USL Super League. Is the schedule going to be mirroring the European League? So going kind of like fall up until the start of summer?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple differentiating factors about the Super League, that really do, make us unique and special. So one is the international calendar. We will start August 2024. We'll run through the fall. We'll have a winter break, come back for the spring season into June. So you'll
Oh,
see a full calendar, and then a summer break too. So players, they can play in the Olympics
yeah.
in 2025 and or 2024.
Hmm.
2024, the Olympics, and then after that, so if they're playing in the Euros, or hopefully by then, there's other
Yeah.
competitions, players will have the
Wonderful.
opportunity without having to sacrifice club and country commitments, right? We think a lot about that, as
That's
well as the
fantastic.
rest and recovery for players in those winter months is something that, we also think is really important. So yeah, the calendar is certainly a defining and differentiating factor for us. And yeah, it aligns most closely with the standard European calendar. But, for all intents and purposes, we've been calling it the international calendar,
Okay, the
because,
international calendar.
yeah, because we are focused on those international events and the club
Yeah.
and country conflicts, trying to help, reduce those. Yeah.
I, for one, appreciate that. We unfortunately have to talk a lot in the women's game about injuries and about wear and tear on these athletes' bodies, and to have built in breaks, over the winter, or knowing that you're not going to have to go to a major tournament and immediately come back and hit the ground running. That's huge. And quite honestly, in my opinion, hopefully the future of the women's schedule, because there's a reason there's been so many injuries. And I think that that's part of it. As somebody who has done no medical school or anything like that.
Well, listen, I mean, that's another thing we need to start talking about, right? Is
Yeah.
research into the women's game,
Yeah.
and we need to start. I mean, that's a whole area. If we could have two podcasts about that,
Oh,
probably
yeah.
200 actually, if we got some experts on this call. But I think that's, those are areas where we want to support, like, the research and insights and data in the women's game, so that we can, continue the improvement of the game going forward and support the players in what they need.
Amazing. I want to just give a moment for, I can say it or you can say it, but I want to just shout out to everybody when the Super League starts, when and where they can begin to watch it. And then I know W League, it's very specific about where everybody can watch their local teams. So how, if they really want to get that information, what's the best, most efficient way for them to do that?
The best information, we'll put everything on USLSuperLeague.com or follow us on Twitter, USL Super League. The same for the W League, right? The website, and then of course the Twitter is USLW League. So I think those are probably the most efficient and effective methods to get information about broadcast. We'll announce media deals and all that at a later time. Or you can come to your podcast. Keep coming back. Listen to Sara. You'll have all the goods.
Oh,
here.
stop it. Wow. I'm going to clip that. That's going to be the beginning of every single podcast now. All right. Well, Amanda, thank you so much. Before we sign off, I always like to give a moment. Do you want to shout out any social media that somebody can follow, whether it's yours or USL, W League, or Super League, or anything like that? Or final thoughts to add?
My final thoughts are just that I value and appreciate you taking the time. I know you put a lot of effort and work, into the pod, into women's soccer. And I, having started my career, slinging tweets back in 2008, I get it.
As we all do.
And I'm fortunate to be in this position and have this conversation with you. So no, I'm just thank you. And thanks to all the listeners for taking the time.
Thank you. And I hope it's clear and how much love I have, not just obviously for the game, but for leagues that are built on giving more opportunity to players and people who work in the game but aren't on the field anymore, because most of us are just the people who used to play, but our bodies don't let us do that anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really great to have those areas and have them continue to grow. So thank you for leading the charge on that with the USL. And hopefully we can have you back on maybe at the start before the 2024 season kicks off for the Super League. And we can do like a big roundup of predictions for what we think is going to happen for that first
I love
league.
it. Yeah, that's great. I love it. Sign me up.
Thanks so much, Amanda. And that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sara, they've been Allie, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.